Orthodontics is a remarkable profession. You can choose whether you want to practice alone or in a large group practice. Do you want to have one practice or many? Do you want to work in a boutique type practice or do you want to work in more insurance driven? And the beauty of today's guest is that he's used his brains and super hard work to build something really special. And moreover, he hasn't been afraid to surround himself with people who make him better. So as I tell you every time, buckle up or get on the treadmill or grab that drink. But you do not want to miss my time today with Dr. Ben Fishbein. It's Dr. Glenn Krieger here with another episode of the OrthoPreneurs podcast. And today we've got a special guest. We always have a special guest, but today we have an extra special guest. Please help me welcome at home, clap your hands for Dr. Ben Fishbein. Welcome, Ben.
Thanks. It's an honor to be on here.
Well, we're honored to have you. And for those of you out there who might be living under a rock or may not know who Dr. Ben Fishbein is, we'll get into that in a little bit. But personally, and he knows this, so I hope not to embarrass him, he's somebody who's inspired me. He's certainly what we would refer to as a pioneer in the ortho world with some of the things he's done. And as we go through the conversations today, I have no doubt you'll come to respect him in the same way I do already. So Ben, sorry I had to say that out loud, but it's absolutely true. So
thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Well, it's all true. Like I said, we're gonna cover a lot of ground today with Dr. Fishbein. As you'll see, he's a man of many talents. But let's start the way I always like to start, if you don't mind, and just give us a little bit of background, a real quick, short origin story of how did you end up in ortho? How did you end up kind of where you are? And then, by the way, you are in. I'll let you tell people what city and state you're in.
Sure. So we're in Pensacola, Florida. We have 8 offices surrounding Northwest Florida. But originally got into orthodontics. My uncle was an orthodontist in Maryland. Saw what he did. I worked with him, and I liked it. So I went into it myself. And then while in residency, I met my wife, and I was supposed to go back to Maryland, and she wanted to go to Florida. So we're in Florida. That's how that works sometimes. And I worked for a corporate office for the first 9 months after I got out, and then I was able to buy a small practice, and we took that 2-office practice with 7 team members to 8 offices with like 94 team members, and obviously grew the production a bit. And then when we got to a certain point, we were in conversations with Smile Doctors and decided to join with them, and that's been going great, and that's kind of where we are today.
Cool. Okay, so that's the whole story, folks. Appreciate you tuning in, and have a great day.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's an amazing story. You grew it from how many employees originally did you have?
Yeah, we had 7 originally. There were 7 of us.
So you had 7 employees to 94 employees. That's an impressive feature, but now tell people what time frame that took place over.
I bought the practice in October 2013. So we joined with Smile Doctors June of 2020. So yeah, it's about 7 years, 8 years.
Yeah. So for those of you out there doing the math, that's pretty solid to grow to 94. And for those out there who want to say, well, 94 team members, he can't be making a living. He's got to be over. Trust me when I tell you that they're doing just fine. They're doing just fine for themselves. This is one of those episodes where, and I'm sorry, Ben, I just want to say this out loud to everybody so they can hear it. This is where one of those episodes where you're Schadenfreude, or however you pronounce it in German, you got to set it aside. You have to understand that this is a man where possibilities actually become outcomes. And, when you hear about practice, oh, he has 7 practices. Oh, he has 4 practices. Oh, this person has 11 practices. They're doing $8 million, $20 million a year. You get these presumptions in your head often that make you think you understand their model really well. And I can tell you as somebody who knows it a little bit, that today I'm asking you to suspend a little bit in your mind of what you think you know. Because if you're receptive to the message that you're going to hear, there's a lot to be learned. All of it good. And I'm sure there have been good times and bad times, Ben, but to be able to go from 7 employees to 94 employees in a profitable environment and a structured environment, without chickens running around with their heads cut off kind of feeling. That's something we can all learn from. And we're going to talk a little bit later, if it's okay with you, about the Fishbein Fundamentals.
Sure.
So that people can hear about that. But I just want to say it out loud one more thing. 9 months you were in corporate dentistry beforehand. When I want to find a Ben Fishbein corporate pay stub. That's like a Babe Ruth worn jersey right there.
Oh man.
You know, that's probably worth it. And how were you as an associate in a corporate environment? Were you good?
I thought I was pretty good. Yeah, you have to ask my boss, but I mean, I thought, patients were happy. I didn't know anything, and it's funny. That's when I thought I was the richest, right? Because I was right out of school and I was getting this this paycheck, and I was like, oh my gosh, that was like the high for me. So.
Yeah, I think you probably hit other highs since then, hopefully.
Sure.
But yeah, it's crazy, and you went to Jacksonville, right?
I did, yes.
So and it's funny because some of my favorite people on the planet, it's really interesting, the group of people who've come out of that school. We were just talking before we started recording a little bit about Chris Setta, Chris Feldman, Scott Law came out of JU, right?
Yeah.
And I know I'm going to forget like a dozen names of people who I respect and love.
I meant to mention this to you. You probably don't remember this. You came down to visit, right?
I did. We
had lunch together.
I remember I wasn't going to say anything, Ben, okay? Because I didn't want you to feel like you owe me or anything. But I bought you lunch.
Did you really? Oh, I didn't know.
You see, you totally forgot.
Yeah.
You see, listen to this, folks. That's the kind of guy I have on the way. Doesn't? No, I'm kidding. So yeah, what people don't know is, and I'm not embarrassed about it. I was a 44-year-old ortho resident my first year, right? I was like 42 years old and applying to ortho. I was this older, quote unquote, out of touch dude who'd been practicing for 20 years, and everybody knows my story. But imagine, for those of you who are residents, how awkward it was on the other side of the camera. Like for me to be 42 years coming into a program where everybody's in their mid to late 20s, maybe there's some early 30s in there, tight knit, bonded. And so when I went to go visit JU, of all the programs that I visited, you guys are some of the most welcoming, down to earth. All the programs I visited, people were awesome. And people don't know this, Ben, but I didn't get into ortho the first time through. I'm not afraid to admit it, but I wanted to be an orthodontist so bad that I applied to like 56 or 55 schools.
Wow.
And I didn't get in the first time through. And I understand the way the game is played and I respect it. But I reapplied a second time. And that's when I met you guys, when I decided I'm going to go visit some programs and get to meet people. And I at lunchtime, I remember I was like, hey, who wants to go out and grab some lunch? And we all went to that. It was like a sandwich shop, right?
I don't remember where we went, but I all I can think about is now that I owe you lunch.
Yeah, because after the bill came, I was like, look, I've been practicing 20 years. You're all residents. I was like, no, I got it. I knew I wasn't buying my way into an ortho program because you guys couldn't get me in. But
yeah.
I was like, I got lunch. Don't worry about it. And I think I bought Feldman. And I think Feldman owes me lunch too.
Yeah. All right. So we will take you out to lunch. But I definitely remember you. I remember you visiting, and I remember talking with you, which is, we're talking about a decade ago, right?
Yeah, it was probably around 2010, 2011 that I was out there. We're talking. And funny thing is, it seems like yesterday, man. And I got to tell you, I was really impressed with that program in a sense that they really tried to foster, and I don't know if they still do, a sense of business ownership, a sense that. And I think there's academics out there who want to attack this, and God bless them if they want to. But ortho is not just an art and a science; it's a business, and that's why OrthoPreneurs exists. Because too many schools don't treat it like a business. They train you to use your Tweed mechanics or whatever it might be. Go out, be a great orthodontist, and things will just happen. And it doesn't quite work that way. And I felt that, like, am I crazy in thinking that Jacksonville really took an approach towards trying to teach you a little bit of the business of ortho as well?
I wouldn't say that. I would just say that, I think relative to your traditional ortho program, I think it's almost ran more like a private practice, and that rubs off on you a little bit. Right.
I remember that. You were like paired in like, there were pairs, right?
Yeah.
It was like a left and a right. And I was really impressed with that. And I'm glad you remember we went to lunch, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for the record, I will gladly buy you lunch again next time. It's my pleasure. So
it is my turn now. So.
Okay. There you go, people. It's on record.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your practice growth, right? You had 2013, you had 2 practices, 17 employees, I think you mentioned originally.
Seven, yeah.
Well, you had 2 practices and 7 employees.
Yeah, we would just go from one to the other. Yeah.
So, again, it's impossible to distill down everything that you've learned from that process in a half hour to an hour podcast. And that's part of what Fishbein Fundamentals is about. And we'll get to that afterwards. But if you could give me the elevator speech, we're going from the first floor to the 70th floor. So we got about 20, 30 seconds in the elevator together. What advice would you give to orthodontists out there who, whether they want to retain ownership or become part of a DSO at some point, to grow and scale that way? What do they need to be thinking? What do they need to know?
Well, I think before I would tell them to scale that way, I would say figure out what you want, what kind of lifestyle you want to have, and then base everything around that. And like what I had or have is not what most orthodontists would want. I think. I mean, I think I talk to orthodontists, and their goals are not to get as big as possible, but to have a lifestyle where they're working 3 days a week and taking 10 weeks of vacation. So, that wasn't the life I've led for the last, 7 years, which that's okay. That's what I wanted. But yeah, I'd say decide what you want and then base everything around that.
And I agree. There's a valid point. I just wrote about that last week. 2 weeks ago, I talked about selling the crap out of your practice. That, if you have a practice, you're selling, and you need to sell, ambitiously. You shouldn't just sit there on your laurels and think Great Ortho is going to get you, boatloads of patients. And then the follow-up to that was kind of like, when is big enough big enough?
Sure.
Right. And I've always been an advocate of people designing what they want in life and then going out and getting it. And if you want 12 weeks off a year and you want to make a nice living enough that you'll pay for your house and your car and travel and never want for anything, that's a great life. But can you explain to people out there right now, you said if you want 10 weeks off and what have you, and 3 days a week, that's great. What is the life of Ben Fishbein been like the last 7 years? What kind of lifestyle? And the corollary to that, the follow-up is, does it have to be that way if you want to get what you've gotten?
Oh, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, you can either outwork or outsmart people, and I always just tried to outwork them because I wasn't smart enough. So I think if you're really smart, I know some guys who are really doing crazy numbers who just really aren't working all that much. So yeah, I don't think you have to do it the way I did, but the way I did it, the way my wife describes it is, when she tells people I saw it, she's like, well, he did 30 years of orthodontics in 7 years because I was working all the time. So, I mean, my life in the last, 7, 8 years or whatever, I was working 5 clinical days a week with 1 Saturday a month. And when I wasn't doing that, I was working on the business, whether I'm, exploring new locations or, talking to vendors, getting new offices set up or figuring out a game plan, to bring in new team members or going to a meeting or to learn from orthodontists who are doing it better than I am. So we were busy.
Yeah. Well, can you repeat what you broke up just a touch? What did your wife say you did in 7 years?
Yeah. So when people ask, they're like, he only worked for 7 years and he already, partnered with Smile Doctors. She'll say, well, he did 30 years of work in those 7 years. So.
Right. Yeah. And I heard you say it. I wanted to hear you repeat it because it's a message I've been screaming from the mountaintops since I got my soapbox. And it is this. I get it, folks. I got 3 kids, right? I got a wife. I know what it's like to go home and see my family. And I also know what it's like to go home and everybody's fast asleep. It is okay to work your 30 years in 7 years. It is possible. You can do that. I have a friend who, it's a story I tell a lot, Ben, and I'm having this because I realize that not everybody's cut the way you and I are, where we could work and work and work and work and find a fulfillment and be happy and know that we're putting things on hold a little bit because we're putting 30 years of ortho into 7 years because you're going to get the reward at some point. But I have a friend I remember as a periodontist shared space with me, and I've written about it. One day at 5 o'clock, we shared space. We had a building where he was on the left side, I was on the right side, but we shared sterilizing, x-ray, the whole 9 yards. So he could literally just walk across without opening doors, walk across the sterilizing area, and there I was. And it was 5 o'clock, And I had a patient who was coming in at the end of the day, unusual, but she was coming in. And I was doing paperwork and strategic planning, and I was working on a marketing campaign. And he walked in, it's 5 o'clock, and he said, "What are you up to?" I said, "Oh, I got this stuff to do. I'll be out of here by 6:30, 7 o'clock. And he said, "Well, I got to get home." I said, "Why do you got to get home?" He said, "Oh, my boys, they're waiting for me. I got to get home right now." And I said to him, "I got a question for you." And we'll just call him Ben, because you're not a periodontist.
Sure.
And I said, "Ben, if a patient walked in right now, this second, 5 o'clock, and wanted you to place 4 implants on her, and you had the assistant here right now, and it would take you 1 hour to put those 4 implants in, would you stay for her?" And his answer was no. Nope. And he looked me in the eye with a sense of honesty and righteousness, which I think he felt was truthful, in that, no, I got to get home right now, because I made a promise to my boys that I will be home at 5 o'clock every single day, and I'm going home right now. And I said to him, "It's admirable, but you do know that if you put those 4 implants in right now, you could spend a week with your boys at Disneyland, right? If you put those 4 implants in right now and say for 1 hour, you could, get whatever, $8,000, whatever it was, and you could take your boys on a trip paid to Disneyland with the money you just made." And his answer to me was, "Nope, not going to violate my rules." I said, "Okay, God bless you for that." But, to me, I see a fair amount of that in the ortho world, and I respect it, and I understand that people are built that way. I'm not, you're not. The idea that if you kill yourself for a certain amount of time, you'll see the rewards way earlier. And if I was a 35-year-old orthodontist, I think there's something to be said about killing yourself for 7 to 10, 15 years, build the practice of your dreams, potentially sell the practice of your dreams if you want to, and be able to spend the rest of your life with your family. And it's not as if you've lived under a rock for 7 years, right? I mean,
sure. No, it's been a great time.
Yeah, you've taken trips, you've spent time with your wife. I think you've got a dog, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I do. Yeah, we have a 3-year-old daughter. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not as if, folks, that you're asking to be cloistered for 7 years, but there is some wisdom in understanding what he said, that he worked 30 years in 7. You can work 30 years in 30, and you can also work 30 years in 7. And the funny thing I find today is there are ortho residents coming out of programs who have not practiced a day and are already discussing their exit strategy. Have you met any of those?
I hear the craziest stuff from the recent graduates. It's I think it's a different generation. I don't know.
I think it is. It's funny because I think the other side of the coin, Ben, is that people, you work 30 years in 7. The problem is people see, Michael Jordan, shoot a game-winning 3, or Steph Curry or LeBron James or Kobe, and they go, "Oh, wow, look how easy it is." And they don't realize, how many times they were up at 4 a.m. in the gym or 10 p.m. in the gym. And I think people tend to look at at situations like yours. Oh, look, he went from 17 to 94 in 7 years. How hard can it be? And they don't realize it takes dedication and hard work. And I would argue, if you're coming out of ortho with an exit strategy, you might want to work for like 6 months or a year before you really, define that exit strategy, because it's not quite as easy as you think it is. Would you agree?
Yeah. And, for me, it was my wife who really, I guess, coined that for me when she said that, and it kind of hit me. But, I just didn't know any different. I just know, hey, I'm out of school. I went to school for all this time. It's time to work. And, I enjoyed it. I mean, I enjoy working my butt off. I'm sure I know you do too. I mean, it's like, we don't know any other way.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I people look at me and go, "Oh my gosh, how do you have enough time in the day?" I'm like, time in the day for what? I work, I see my wife, I see my kids, we go on trips. It's time management, of course, but I couldn't imagine, not working per se. I mean, I get so much fulfillment from it. It's not who I am, but I'm working towards a goal. And I see people I've known come out of school, and, from day one, I'm going to work 3 days a week, and I'm going to buy my Range Rover, and God bless you. If that's what you want to do, go for it. I'm just trying to open up your eyes to perhaps another approach, which is put in your time, kill yourself, make a plan, and be your own boss earlier in life, as opposed to, I'll also throw out the point that if you can kill yourself early and really build something and put money into a retirement account, you've got compound interest working in your favor.
Sure.
And take it from an old man who's 53 years old, that I could go get $10 million today at age 53 and go put it in the bank, and it won't be as valuable as the $1.5 million you put in the bank at age 35 potentially. I mean, the numbers there might not work out. It might be worth more than the $1.5 million.
I'll take the 10 million, but yeah,
yeah. I mean, I'd rather have the 10 million at 35, right? That's like the ideal.
Yeah.
That's the game plan there. But so let's talk a little bit about, let's jump right into Fishbein Fundamentals, because I think that's a really good place, because we're talking about work ethic and we're talking about all the stuff. If you don't mind mentioning a little bit about what it is, because I know it's a passion project for you.
Sure.
And then we'll go in a little bit after that in terms of the organizational structure you've built behind you, if you don't mind.
Sure. So, I mean, the course is really run by the brains behind our operation, which is Amanda Floyd, who I know you've had the chance to talk with. She's fantastic. And, we were having visitors. It was at one point every week people were coming down, and it was getting, she's trying to do her job. And she said, hey, can we organize this a little bit? And I said, well, why don't we try to, set it up where we invite everyone to come at one time? So that's how it kind of came into, it came to be the course. And basically what it is we're very transparent. You spend a half day where you're actually like seeing us in office. So, we're not BSing on everything. You see what we actually do. And then we share with you all of the things that we do to really get us to where we are now, which is, our systems, our marketing, our mindset. And it's been a really, really fun for us to meet everybody and talk with all these orthodontists.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So in essence, people can come take the course. How long is it? You said a half day, but I know it's longer.
So the total course is a day and a half. It's a half day where you're in office with us, and then you have the second half of the day, and the next half day we're reviewing all of our systems, our new patient exam, our marketing, and kind of the way we do everything in our office.
Awesome. And I just want to touch on something real quickly, which is, and this is a finger pointed back at me as well. But remember, folks, when you go to these courses, he's going to be fully transparent and share everything with you, but it's on you to go take it and use it, right? Just by showing up at the office doesn't mean you're guaranteed success. You guys have to go home. You got to use the stuff. And that's why he's so transparent. He's happy to share everything with you. And so if one wants to learn how to take this course, where would they go?
I mean, there's a website for it, fishbeinfundamentals.com, or if it's easier, just message me on Facebook or email me. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. Cool.
Yeah, this is the busiest dude on the planet. Easy to get a hold of. It's crazy.
That is you. But yeah, thank you.
No, I am. I'm the second busiest man in show business behind you, my friend. Yeah. So you touched on something else there, which I just want to really quickly go over, which is you visited a ton of offices when you're trying to get better. Mm-hmm. And that's something I've always preached as well. Get out to as many offices as you can. I've always said yes to anybody who wanted to visit me. Just, I don't know what I have to show them, but I'm always happy to sit and commiserate, because when you come visit me, I learn so much. Sure. And I become better. And when I go to other offices, and a lot of the tricks and tips I've learned have been by visiting other offices. And so I can totally understand why you do what you do now, Ben. Now, the brains of the operation you mentioned earlier. Who's the brains of the operation?
Amanda Floyd, who's our COO, does a fantastic job.
Yeah, she's, for those of you out there who don't realize it, Fishbein Orthodontics has Amanda Floyd. You may see her on Instagram or Facebook. She's very active. I joke, because she's one amazing woman. I joke that all she does is works out and eats. That's all she does. Her Facebook is her working out and her eating. But let me tell you, folks, in between working out and eating, a lot gets done, right?
Sure. Oh yeah. We keep her pretty busy. So
can you talk a little bit about I know she's COO, but what does that mean to the average person out there listening? And what does she do? And is it something that you'd recommend that anybody who has a few offices would consider bringing somebody like that in?
Yes. Well, I think orthodontists are typically good at one thing, and that's orthodontics. And, the problem is, so many orthodontists are trying to run everything themselves. And by the way, including me, when I first took over the practice, I was, the marketing director, I was the office manager, and I did a really poor job of that. I mean, our first year, mean, we grew, a lot, but our first year we grew very little, if any at all. And it was because I was really holding myself back. So I think, certainly you can find someone to delegate these tasks to and do a better job than you are doing it. And really, I always say, the orthodontist time, even now with the practice we have, is the best thing they can be doing is doing orthodontics and seeing more patients. It's the absolute most profitable thing that orthodontists can do. And everything else, find someone better for you. For me, it was Amanda, and it was one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Yeah. And Doug Shaw, my partner, and I, we took a page out of your playbook, and we hired Shanda Fulgham, who spoke at this year's virtual summit. Amazing woman. It's interesting because Shanda has no dental experience, but huge management experience and a people person, a great communicator. So Amanda came from a dental background, right, with no formal management experience per se, other than what she got on the job, if I understand it properly, right? She didn't go to school for masters or anything like that. If you were, I know both sides have pros and cons. I have heard a lot of dentists or orthodontists out there say, oh, I've got a TC who's really bright. I've got an office manager who's really bright. How do they would you recommend it to consider transitioning that office manager or that TC? Forget office manager, because many offices don't even have an office manager, but they usually put the TC at that sort of top of the hierarchy. Sure. Would you say, yeah, if your TC is sharp and bright, they can take, or does it take a really special person to be able to pull this off?
Well, I think it takes both. I mean, and I've seen it both ways. We've got a lot of visitors, and I've seen people hire from the outside. We don't. So the way we do all of ours, it's all kind of, you start with one thing, and then, as you learn more, we'll try to promote you from within. But yeah, all of our, everyone from our leadership team, all of our directors have all started off as either a clinical assistant or, front desk, smaller role. And maybe we just happen to have the right people. I think that's partially true, but yeah, so I think it takes both. Cool.
Yeah, it's a great idea. And I love it. The challenge that I think many of us face, and I'd love to hear how you get around it, is that last part is the staffing. Where I am in Dallas, we'll put out an ad for people, good ads. We'll get, 75 people apply, of which, 10 will actually answer the question we ask. Of those 10, 5 of which, just can't even talk in person. And you end up with 2 or 3 people you hire them. And you find out, even with significant training, that the staffing pool is very small. How do you, at least to outsiders, it seems like you find really good people. Where do they come from? How do you get them? Because that's the number outside of the Fishbein orthodontics world, where hopefully you don't have to step out of often. That's our number one problem in life, is getting good team members. How does that happen?
Yeah, so we of all the people we've hired, we've never really advertised for it. Maybe once. We have a bonus. So if a team member refers one of their friends who starts working here and they stay for 90 days, that team member who referred them gets a $250 bonus. I think that's the number. We've modified that number over the years, and it just sort of works out better that way. We also don't hire anybody with experience. When there's someone who comes from another orthodontic office that applies to our office, I mean, that there's no advantage to that person than to somebody who's never stepped foot in a dental office before, because we really like to train them our way. And, the most important thing to us is just a good attitude. I mean, forget dental skills. You can teach that to anybody, but attitude, sometimes you can't.
Right. I remember a great consultant saying, hire for attitude, train for skill.
Yeah, that's great.
Right. And that's exactly what you're doing. So if you're bringing in people who don't have any ortho experience, that means you've got to typically be a little overstaffed, right? Because, you're not struggling to fill that last position. You're kind of anticipating growth and bringing somebody in, or having a stable, if you will, of people who are trained and ready to go ahead of time. So that, like, if you're going to need an assistant in 4 to 6 months because you're growing, you're hiring somebody now, getting them trained up, so you're never behind, is my guess, right?
Yeah, it's not as much as you would think, but yeah, our training process is, I think it's under 90 days. But yeah, it takes some time.
Do you put them through a formal training where, you sit them down for, a week or 2 weeks or whatever it is, or do they just jump in day one and start watching?
No, so I mean it's a formal training, but it's all done in the clinic. There's no like classroom time where week one you're going to do this, week two, you're going to do this, week three. So we're having them work on different things, and really by I think it's like week 12, they're good. I mean, I'm like, man, this person's a better clinician than I am. I've been doing it for all these years. So.
Nice. Well, how often do you run into that new hire who just doesn't have the hand skill? I've had that a few times.
Yeah, part of it's the person. Part of it is, we keep our mechanics pretty simple in our office, so I think that helps. And what's funny is very rarely I can think of like one or two people, and the one person we said, hey, we're going to extend your training another 90 days or so, and now that person's one of our best clinicians. So I think it's almost anyone can learn it. And then if it still doesn't work out, we've transferred them to like front desk or call center or, a different position in the office.
Nice. And I love the idea. I'm going to transition to the call center because that's something we recently started in our practices. Yeah. Again, staffing has been hard. It's been really hard because when you don't have enough people in your organization to refer you more people in your organization, it's kind of tough. But talk about, for folks out there, what are the advantages of a call center? Why did you enjoy having one?
Yeah. So, with us, it's a little bit different, but, the thing that used to happen is, somebody would, the person at the front desk would be answering the call. So either they, you had a patient walk up to the front desk. So either they're going to be rude to the person they're on the phone with or not pick up the phone, or they're going to be rude to the patient who's at the front desk. I mean, it's a bad situation. So we've always answered our calls outside the front desk. But the other part of it is, do you know what percentage of calls you're answering at your office? And my guess would be the average orthodontist, the average orthodontic practice probably answers about 70% of their calls, maybe on the high level. So we track that very closely. We answer 94% of our incoming calls. And what happens is if you're not answering those calls, all that person's going to do if it's a new patient is just call the next person on Google or whatever list they're looking at. So that's very important to us. I think, the number is if you're missing one new patient call a day, that's going somewhere else, that's $1 million of production a year. So, if you're missing a lot of calls, you could really be losing some serious production.
Agreed. And I think the motto to take away from this is sometimes you got to spend money to make money.
For sure.
Right? Don't be penny wise, pound foolish. If your practice is running around crazy and, your front desk can't get to the phone calls the way they should, you can always hire another front desk person. But I've always found putting another person at the front means now they somehow find themselves occupied with something else a lot of the time. Whereas a call center, they're dedicated to doing one thing and one thing only, and that's answer the phone. 100%. And do you track, I assume you track when calls were coming in, so you knew when the call center should be staffed?
Yeah, we staff it from 7:30 to 5:30 every day. We also staff it on Saturdays. But yeah, we track everything. We track how long people are on hold for. We track how many calls we're missing. We're tracking every team member to see how many calls that team member is answering. So, we have an idea of how many calls one team member can answer and typically where we need that to be staffed at.
Yeah. So for everybody out there listening, metrics, okay? You need to have metrics in your life. Numbers don't lie. There's no emotion behind numbers. Use the numbers to your advantage to grow your practice and be smarter with it. And Jamie Reynolds always talks about that related to OrthoFi, right? With financing. It's just the more numbers you got, the better the choices you can make. So I just wanted to two more things with you real quick, because I know you've been on here for a while and I appreciate your being here.
Sure.
For those people thinking about going into a DSO, which now you're a part of, right? Some would argue you already were before you joined the bigger DSO. Sure. But what are some of the decisions that help drive you to that area? And any sort of feedback you could offer about joining Smile Doctors would be really appreciated.
Sure. Well, Smile Doctors has been great. It's really been a great transition. It's been fantastic so far. But, when I first talked to them, I really was not considering joining them. I mean, I was 36 at the time. It's like, well, I can do this for another 20, 30 years. And, I got one piece of advice, and it was one word. They just said, listen. And, they went into it further and they said, look, as a business owner, you have a responsibility to your team, to your family, and to your patients to listen, to see what's out there, see what opportunities are out there. And, I was like, okay, I'll listen. And then, the more I thought about it, I looked at it and I said, you know what, this is going to be better for my team. It's going to be better for my family, and my patients are going to be taken care of. And that's, I just shared that same advice. I would take the time to listen. There's nothing to lose by hearing what they have to say. And again, I'm somebody who didn't think I was going to do this now, and I did it. And I'm glad I joined Smile Doctors. And what I can tell you is they take care of their people. I know there's other great DSOs out there. Just, Smile Doctors is the one I have experience with.
Nice. And you said when you first spoke to them, how long was it between your first conversation and when you actually closed with them? Yeah,
I think, I think it was a while. I mean, my very first conversation, and they're very honest with you. I mean, Dana Fender, Scott Law, Greg Goggins, I keep going to all those guys. They'll tell you if it's the right time for you or not. And I think when we initially talked, I saw them at the AO one time, and they're like, yeah, you're probably not ready. And then when I really started talking to them, I think we had talked, and there was about probably a 12-month period from the time we said hello to the time we closed. So.
Okay. So it wasn't like it took 2 or 3 years.
No.
It was about a year's time frame between one and the other. And I like what you said there is that you took care of your family, you took care of your patients, you took care of, the company itself. There was a lot of things there. A lot of these younger orthodontists who say, oh, I'm going to build what Fishbein built. I'm going to grow this thing and I'm going to cash out. They see it only as a money solution. They see it as dollars and signs. And it's interesting to see that you didn't even mention that as part of I'm sure let's be honest, business is business. It plays a role. But do you find that your stress levels are considerably lower now? Do you find that you're able to, or are you still driving the way you were driving beforehand?
Well, listen, I'm still driving. It's just, it's part of who I am. And I want to see Smile Doctors do as well as they can. And, I'm a equity owner in Smile Doctors. So yeah, I'm driven to do the best I can still, but, I'm certainly more relaxed. I have security. I feel like my team has better security, and my patients are taken care of. So I really felt like it was a win-win.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And the last thing I'm going to talk to you about today is related to associateships, right? Because you have 8 locations, I think you said.
Mm-hmm.
So among those 8 locations, how many associates I'm going to say did or do have currently?
Sure. Yeah, we have 5 doctors, including me.
Including you. So it's yourself and 4 other doctors covering 8. How many do you keep track of how many clinic days you have between the 8 clinic doctor days? I mean, like if there's 2 doctors there on one day, then that's 2.
Yeah, we're all working 4 to 5 days a week. So
there's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of clinical days. It's a lot of schedule juggling. We have somebody who, their sole job is to do the schedule for us, because it gets pretty complex when you're talking about scheduling assistants and scheduling doctors and stuff. But they do a great job.
Nice. So when looking for an associate, do you find them also through word of mouth? Is that how it typically happens? It's been word of mouth. Our first doctor who joined us, who is really the best clinical doctor I know, Sarah Howe. We weren't looking, and she came to visit us, and we really weren't looking at the time, but we thought she was so good, we knew we had to have her as part of the team. So that was the first, and then others. Some were word of mouth. Some, I think we actually at one time did advertise for one of them, and then our latest doctor that joined us is my little brother Joey Fishbein. So he's doing a great job. That's cool. So brothers in arms, so to speak.
Yeah.
What advice would you give people out there who are looking to hire an associate?
Well, I would decide what you want. Certainly, we have people who come in and their practice, is doing, less than the average practice, and they're talking about hiring an associate already. And I'm like, you could probably do it yourself. So I think, you really need to evaluate your numbers, but you need to decide what you want, because an associate's only going to do one of 2 things. They're going to, make your lifestyle easier by if they can pick up some of your work and you can work less, or you're going to use them to open up another practice or see more patients to increase the business. So I think you just need to decide what your goals are and take it from there.
Yeah. The one thing, and Doug and I are lucky enough that we've recently spoken to an associate who we're going to bring into our lives. for the same reasons as we've grown, as we need more capacity, as we might open more offices. How do you find that most of the associates coming to you are looking for an equity position, or are they more than happy to work as an associate for a long period of time?
Yeah, everyone's different. Everyone's different, and there's so many different arrangements out there. You just have to find out what works for both people. But what's really interesting, you probably know about this more than I do, is the debt that people are coming out with now, and that may change the equation. I'm not sure. We'll see how it all plays out.
Yeah, I mean that was the original reason why I started OrthoPreneurs. The actual original reason is when I was a resident. My co-residents coming out of school, here I am, I'm 47 getting out of residency. The average resident when they come out of school is what, 31, 32-ish,
Yeah, sure.
Somewhere in that range, give or take, somewhere between 29 and 35, right? That's
Sure.
the average resident. And they were standing around me, on average, the residents I knew in ortho, not just in my program, but there are somewhere between $150,000 and $850,000 in debt. That's your average ortho, and the sweet spot seems to be that $350,000 to $500,000 number. And I will go on record and I will say it to whoever wants to hear it. I consider it borderline criminal, that every ortho program is somehow affiliated with some business program somewhere. At a university or a private business school that's nearby, that they could easily give much more business and understanding of business training in residency. And it bothered me to see people coming out $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in debt and asking a question like, I got a contract, what do I do with it? Right? Like you have a contract.
That is totally true. Yeah.
Like you're literally $500,000 in debt by signing your name on a piece of paper, and yet you get a contract from a potential associate. You're not going to show it to your faculty at the school because 90% of them have no idea what to do with it. You don't even know where to find an attorney. You don't know what a CPA really does and don't even know how to look at a P&L and understand it properly. You have no idea how to understand how to buy that practice or even whether you should join that practice. You don't know what's available to you out there in terms of, should I be an associate? Should I become a partner? What's an average pay scale? How should I be compensated? What about taxes? And it was at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do whatever I can to help connect people who are, connecting a Ben Fishbein, for instance, with some resident coming out of school who somebody is a resident who has no idea about this stuff and says, hey guys, gals, I don't know what to do here. What should I do? And that's how OrthoPreneurs formed, because my dream vision, if you ask what's my goal one day, I would love to have a dream team of a doctor, a clinician like yourself, for instance, a CPA, an attorney, and maybe a financial planner who put on a 2-day course or a 1-day course at a region where 3 or 4 universities could send their residents for a weekend, to where you're going and you're sitting down and all the residents are able to go like they do to Gore, and for 1 day you get intensive training from what's it like in the real world, what do you need to know from law, CPA, financial planning, what should you know. That would be my dream, and then of course have it be free. Don't charge the residents for that somehow.
I think you provide a ton of value doing that.
It would be great. And
Yeah.
and so speaking of value, you've given a huge amount of value today. So thank you. That's my segue into this. For those folks out there listening, if you're not signed up for OrthoPreneurs Summit, you will get a chance to see Ben or Dr. Fishbein and Amanda speak there. This year's topic is leadership and management, something I think all of us can use more of. And so the goal is to really help everybody become a better leader and manager. And I know that we can learn a lot from you and Amanda. So if you're not signed up out there and you want to learn more about it, go to I don't even know. Go to orthopreneurs.com. Just click there and you'll see the button for the summit. And again, I want to repeat this. If you want to go visit Fishbein Fundamentals, which all of us in our RD group, our Orthopreneurs RD group, we had it canceled once because of COVID in 2020. We had it rescheduled in 2021. But the end of April, early May, we're coming to see you, man. Awesome. And it's going to be like storming the Capitol. I'm going to have fur and horns.
I'm gonna buy you lunch.
Oh, thank you, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna buy you lunch.
That's just generous. I appreciate that. I'll take that lunch.
Yeah, that's great.
But I can't wait to come. But if people want to go one more time, how do they sign up for it?
They can just either message me on Facebook or go to fishbeinfundamentals.com.
fishbeinfundamentals.com. And with that, I'm going to say thank you so much, Ben, for your time today. I hope everybody out there understands the hard work that goes into building something. The idea that, if you really, really focus hard, you can do 7 years, you can do 30 years in 7 years. But that may not be your model. But I do think no matter what your model is, there's a lot to be gleaned in terms of associateships, business structures, COO, how to market your practice, how to grow your practice, how to serve your patients, systems and policies. Definitely go sign up for Fishbein Fundamentals. I have no financial interest whatsoever in it. And again, I want to say thank you, Ben, from the bottom of my heart.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you, man.